So let's pick up here on these questions where we left off in chapter 2. We did the emboldened, page 19, and then we were talking about the first principles of thought. I believe that we defined that, right? The self-evident laws of logic, they need no proof from other principles. They are self-evident. In other words, we just intuitively know that. Did we go over the law of non-contradiction and the law of the excluded middle? We talked about that. Okay. So, and we talked about deduction and induction. Now, I think this is where we left off on number 9. How is truth known? Is that correct? Did we talk about that one? Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. So, how is truth known? How do we figure out if something is true or not? Yes. By the what? By the first principles. There are others other than the two that we talked about, but yeah, by the first principles. So, truth is known through the first principles of logic, through induction, right? The scientific method, by observing, by sense experience. I've told you the story of the titration and turning pink, and I have no idea. I had no idea at the time. I still have no idea what that was and why it did it. But that was, I was supposed to know it, but I didn't. And that was induction, right? When I took anatomy and physiology and we dissected a fetal pig, I learned through that, I learned about the anatomy of the pig and what muscles looked like and all kinds of other things. That's induction. It's observation and making conclusions from those observations. What's deduction? Because we know the truth through logic, induction, and deduction. What's deduction? What?
Logic.
Yes, logic and reasoning. It's a logical argument, like that premise that they gave, that all men are mortals, Zachary is a man, Zachary is mortal, right? That's a logical argument, and deduction is that argument is deduction, lining up premises to find out to come to a conclusion. Now, it can be more than 2 premises, by the way. Now, figuring out if it's valid, figuring out if it's true, it's valid. It's a valid argument. Is figuring out if it's true needs induction. We need to use our observations of the world to figure out if that's true. So we learn truth through the first principles of logic, through induction, through deduction. But can we know everything completely? No, we can't. And for a lot of beliefs, there still has to be some, okay, I know enough to believe this is true. But even though I don't know everything. And what do we call that? That gap between what I know and certainty. That's faith. So then how are truths about God known? That's how we learn about truths in the world. How are truths about God known? Okay, but how do we know the Bible is true? Okay. Who told you that? Circular. Mommy and Daddy told you? Your youth group leader told you? Remember, we talked about that. Those are sociological reasons. Those aren't a good reason to believe anything yet. Same way. Same way. We can prove the truth of God. We can prove the reliability of Scripture using induction, just as we do for other truths. Using deduction, just as we do for other truths. And we'll talk about this more, but here's an example. That's a book. And it just accidentally exploded from a printing shop. Fires, a horrible thing happened at the printing job. That book came out. Any of you believe me? No, why not? Has an explosion at a printing shop ever created a book? How do we get books? Okay, but how does the book, what does the book have to have first? You all look at that book and you know that there was an intelligent designer of that book. You know that that book came out of an intelligent being. If a book requires intelligence, isn't it at least now look, this is just our first stop of many on proving that a designer exists, that there's a first cause for the universe. But doesn't it make sense, based on your observation of the world, that something like the universe would need a cause? And as I've told you before, even the most famous atheist on the planet says that evolution is the belief in something that appears to have been created, designed by a creator, actually. Even he admits, it looks like it needs intelligence. That's induction. You're using induction when you realize that. You're using what you observed of the world. Again, very first stop on many on this train that will ride for the rest of the year. Okay, number one on the engage. Review the story by Dr. Geisler when he attended the University of Detroit on pages 58 and 59. What fundamental problem did Dr. Geisler expose regarding A.J. Ayer's logical positivism? First of all, I wish I could have had a professor like that when I was in college. No way I was smart enough to do that. But the closest I got was getting Martin Arslanian. What did Geisler expose about logical positivism? So therefore, it's what? It can't be meaningful. But what's wrong with the statement? It's self-defeating. Yeah. So logical positivism is self-defeating. The law claims itself to be meaningless, in other words. Because the only meaningful things are those things, what was it saying? Those things that are what? Empirically verifiable, so scientific method, and true, true by definition. But that statement is neither of those things. Therefore, it's what? It's meaningless. We'll skip number 2 on there, and we'll go to number 3. How would you respond to a person who says that truth in religion doesn't really matter? Yeah, Davis? Okay, what's the point of it? And they might say there is no point. ask you this. If Christianity, or Judaism, or Islam, or Hinduism, or Mormonism, or any one of a number of religions, what happens in Christianity? What is Christianity about people who have no Christ? As opposed to what does Judaism teach about someone who doesn't keep the law? It's a little bit different. Gehenna is a little bit different, but the same idea. That's all. What about Islam? Same thing, right? I mentioned Hinduism. What if it's true? What's the difference? Next life is going to be worse if you do that. You're going to be punished in a future life, maybe not in this life, but you'll be reincarnated higher or lower. So we can only say that it doesn't matter if no religion is true, like that no one is right. But if any one of a number of religions is right, it's eternal. It's not just important in this life. And I would advocate that it is important in this life, but it's eternal. In fact, there's no more important than we consider. I love the question that Pilate asked the Jews, and I think I taught on this late in the year when y'all were at home and I was in the lab. Pilate is trying to free Jesus. He knows that Jesus is innocent, and he's trying to get the Jews to relent. And he says, which do you want me to release to you, Jesus or Barabbas? And they all scream Barabbas. And then he asks the Jews this question, what am I to do then with Jesus who is called Christ? That is the most important question. Anyone. What am I to do with Jesus who is called Christ? It does matter. The last question asks you to take some time to think about people you know who are not Christians, and list reasons based on whether they are religious pluralists or agnostic. Mostly what I would like you to do is, if you know some people who are Christians, I'd like you to write down a couple of first names, or whoever you think of, and to be praying how you might talk to them about what you're learning. And then the rest of the hour you may spend studying for the test. We'll play the Fuser quiz tomorrow, and hopefully have some time. This class will be short. Hopefully have some time to study for the test again tomorrow, and then we'll see if we have time. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so you don't have time tomorrow to study test, and then you might have some. And that's it for today. Bye, Angela.